Making your way towards your seat, that'd be great. Hopefully everybody can find a chair. The bathrooms are back here. There's some water back there. Help yourselves. We're going to have refreshments at the end. We have masks available. They're, there for you if you want them. And yeah, we're going to get started in a few minutes.
Okay, we're gonna get started. We just wanted to note that the family is pleased and proud to have established a memorial scholarship at Peabody. It's the Jim Dickey Memorial Fund for Oboe. You'll see some signs with information. The scholarship honors two aspects of my dad's life work: playing the oboe and teaching the oboe. We have some little cards spread around with information if you'd like to take them home, and we would be honored if you would consider a donation today or at a later time. Finally, at the end of our program, there's going to be an opportunity for anyone interested to share a tribute about my dad to come up. Do I need to say that? Yeah. Do we need to say a thing about that? Go ahead.
For anyone who is not comfortable speaking to large groups like we have today, we will have an opportunity if we have an email address, and the details are on the back of the little cards that I think are, I'm not sure where they are, maybe someone can wave them. Ask if you can't find them. If you'd like to share stories or photos, it means a lot to us. Gwyneth is pointing over there. So there's information there to send us your stories and your thoughts. That would mean a lot to us. I know some people have to leave early, and we so appreciate you taking time to do this with us and sharing any photos or recordings that you come across. We thank you so much in advance for sharing any memories with us. A lot of you were so lovely and called us, and it just meant so much to hear what our dad meant to you. Well, we will probably create a book out of it, and it will mean a lot to us to have. So with that, I think we're going to get started with our program, which we're going to have Mike Ryan come up and share a tribute.
Well, hello, I'm Michael Ryan, and it was my great honor to serve with Jim in the Marine Band for many, many years. And during that time, I learned that there are many different Jim Dickeys to admire and to celebrate. We've got, of course, Jim Dickey, the consummate musician, Jim the humorist, Jim the observer, Jim the critic, Jim the gourmand, and Jim the raconteur. Well, I'm going to leave all of those stories for others to tell, and I'm going to enjoy them immensely. I just want to say a couple of sentences about Jim Dickey, my friend. We were friends throughout our time in the band. We didn't hang out as a rule, and for all his affability, Jim was a very private person, and I respected that. I was never part of an inner circle. In fact, I didn't know that he had been sick. I had left a couple of messages, and he had not responded, which was unusual, and then I was truly shocked to learn of his passing. And I am sure that there are many people like me. I always knew that I could trust Jim with anything I shared with him, and he was always supportive and always kind. When I retired, he wrote me a beautiful note, and like Jim, it wasn't long, it wasn't effusive, but it was very much to the point, and it touched me deeply. I will always treasure it, and I will treasure his memory. I miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to have a performance, which of 8 pieces from the 8 pieces for viola, clarinet, and piano by Max Bruch. Thank you. And the sixth movement nocturne. So if our musicians can come on up, thank you.
Just like some of us here today, I met Jim while working on my undergraduate degree at Peabody. Jim and I hit it off from the start. One thing that I remember most about him is what I like to characterize as his poignant wit. He was able to get a point across while sometimes adding a touch of humor. He was able to do so in a succinct manner, sometimes in the context of only one sentence. While undergraduates, Jim and I, along with Lewis Kirk on bassoon, started doing performances for young audiences at the elementary school level. For some reason, I recently remembered something that had occurred during one of these performances. Our program was such that we came out one by one and gave a demonstration about our instruments, which we did as an interactive discovery with the children. I came out first, and I finished my segment with the cadenza from Peter and the Wolf. Well, this one morning, it just did not happen. Total embarrassment. As Jim came out on stage, the first thing he said was, "Boy, sounded like the cat fell out of the tree." What could I say? Every time I think of that now, I have to laugh at myself because that cat not only fell out of the tree, but it probably broke a couple bones on the way down. I think it got into too much catnip the night before. I know Jim was concerned about how embarrassed I felt, but just like Jim, there was no dwelling on the obvious. He quickly turned things around by throwing in a little levity to lighten the moment, and we just moved on. To me, that was Jim. Jim and I had many good times together. Sorry. I will always be very grateful for that. I was also very fortunate to be one of his friends.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good afternoon. I'm Don Dosh. I'm a friend of Jim's and a former colleague. Excuse me from my notes. I wanted to not miss anything that I jotted down here. I was a colleague of Jim's in the Marine Band, and even though we played completely different instruments, I was a horn player, he's an oboe player, our careers took somewhat parallel courses. And that's sort of how I got to know Jim. First of all, the times we served. I came in 1975 and left in 2001. Jim came in 1977 and left in 2005. So our careers overlapped by 24 years. We served together for 24 years, playing many concerts together, quite a number of tour concerts together. We didn't play too many ceremonies together. Oh, that's right, the oboes. Okay. The oboes and the bassoons and the strings, they didn't do too many marching gigs. But one of the ways, well, actually, the way that I got to know Jim the most was from being a member of the Carabao Chorus. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a group in Washington called the Military Order of the Carabao. And every year they have a big dinner at one of the hotels downtown in DC. And invited are a lot of top military brass and all the heads of the military industrial complex. Northrop Grumman, you can fill in the blank, General Dynamics, all the rest of them. And they have this big show, okay? Well, the Marine Band comes in and plays, and then they exit, and then many of them didn't really have much of an idea of what happened after that. And what happened after that was the show. And during the show, there was a group of us called the Carabao Chorus. And we were a musical troupe, essentially. And we put on silly costumes. And when I first got in, there were no women in the Carabao Chorus, so sometimes we had to dress in drag. I was Carmen Miranda one year. But at any rate, we dressed in silly costumes and we sang tunes. We had a wonderful writer by the name of Al Spivak. And we sang Broadway tunes, rock and roll tunes, operatic tunes with different lyrics, portraying in a funny way what happened in the previous year in the political and military world. And we would rehearse Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 3 weeks before the show at the Army-Navy Club downtown in a room off at the end of the hallway. And Jim and I were in the chorus together. And Jim was the Carabao Chorus leader. And what the leader was responsible for, it was assigning parts, deciding, it was a play. So you, in a way, you had to line things up to make sure that there were no quick costume changes, that sort of thing. And you had to know the personalities and abilities of the people in the chorus, and you had to assign parts. Who gets the solo? Who sings this song? Who sings that song? And I really got to know him well as a member of the chorus during that time. We had a big dinner before the show. The Wednesday night before the show, the Army-Navy Club gave us a big dinner every night. We called Hog Night. And back in the early days of our tenure, after dinner, the cigars came out. And Jim I'm glad my wife isn't here. She would be mad at me for mentioning this. Jim sort of showed me about the pleasure of having a good after-dinner cigar. And he also kidded me all the time because I was not really known for my good attire, okay? And wasn't Ralph Lauren a clothes guy, right? I think he would call me Ralph Lauren all the time because my clothing was always mismatched. And every Carabao rehearsal he would criticize, he would critique my outfit. My gosh, you look like him. Oh, David. But at any rate, so Carabao Chorus, anyway, I guess it's too late to make a long story short. I succeeded Jim as Carabao Chorus leader. Okay, so in that sense, the time together we served Carabao Chorus, and then a third way our careers sort of took on a parallel note is that back in 1987, that was the year of the first appropriated funds tour that the Marine Band did across the country. Before that, you had to actually buy a ticket to come to one of our tour concerts. When we would go on tour, it would be a while. It would be about 7 weeks back then, Monday through Friday, 2 concerts, Saturday and Sunday 1 concert, different town every day for 49 days, maybe 1 or 2 days off. So pretty grueling. But at any rate, in '87, I became the first Marine Band tour coordinator. Set the tour up, go out on the road, set the tour up in the spring, go out in the fall as a player and the tour coordinator. Well, I did that in '87 and '88, and it seemed like the office was thinking, okay, we got this going. This guy's just going to do this. He's going to go out every spring and every fall, every single year. So I decided, no, I don't want to do that. And lo and behold, Jim Dickey was one of the people who succeeded me in this job. And so, another similarity to our career. One time, before the Appropriated Funds Tour, we were on a on tour, and during the matinee, it was a matinee concert, so Colonel Irwin was directing, and we had two different programs, the A program and the B program. In the A program, we kicked it off with Roman Carnival Overture, big English horn solo, which Jim played. And then on the B program, we kicked it off with Boccaccio, which had a horn solo at the beginning. And he kidded me one day. He says, well, I guess every afternoon you're hoping for Roman Carnival, I'm hoping for Boccaccio. But, and that's the thing about Jim. He had that gift of humor. It's been touched on already. During the Hog Night that I mentioned, by the way, Michael Ryan and I are both wearing our Carabao ties tonight in honor of Jim Dickey. So, but he had the gift of humor. During Hog Night, toward the end, well, let's just say jokes were told. And some of them were of a bit of a bawdy nature, shall we say. And when Jim got up to speak, everybody listened. There was something about that guy. When he stood up to speak, you listened because you knew something great was going to come out, even if it was a dirty joke. You know, you just knew that he was going to say something well. I think he spoke at several people's retirement ceremonies. He was just a person that had the gift of gab and knew how to speak and had a great sense of humor. He had a twinkle in his eyes, that man. And a quick, infectious laugh. Not only was he good at telling a joke, he loved to listen to a good joke and laugh heartily. During that time with the Carabao, when I got to know him the best, during some of our breaks, one of the things he did all the time was brag about his family. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, if the younger boys were even born yet, he was bragging about the girls more because they had accomplished more by that time. But he would brag about his wife and his two girls all the time, which I thought was great because I had two girls, and so we were comparing notes. They're about the same ages. And, well, that's what I close with. Humor and just a love of family and pride that he had for his family. We'll miss him.
We have one more, can you hear me? We have one more speaker before our performance. This is Mercy, who is speaking on behalf of Ernie Green, who couldn't be here today.
Hello. So this is from Ernie Green, who, if you don't know, he's the artistic director of Live Arts Maryland. And that's who has the space we're in today. So from Ernie. I'm heartsick that I cannot be there with you all to celebrate Jim's extraordinary life. After avoiding it for almost 2.5 years, I got COVID yesterday. Yeah, he was very sad when I talked to him yesterday. There is so much that I want to say, and hopefully I will be able to add to this in the future, but for now, here are some thoughts about Jim and how we are connected. Like many of you here, Jim and I are connected through Peabody, but we actually didn't connect there because we missed each other by a year or so. We actually lived down the hall from each other at 16 West Mount Vernon Place, but again, we missed each other by a year or two. We would laugh as we remembered the landlady who used to open her sliding doors just a crack to take note of us coming in too late after a night out. We almost missed again when I took over what was then the Laurel Oratorio Society and the Annapolis Chorale. At the time, Jim was contracting for the LOS, and there was no contractor for the chorale. After meeting him in September of 1985 to talk about the orchestra contracting, I knew I wanted to work with him. And at the same time, I asked him if he would do Annapolis as well. The rest, they say, is history. Over the years, we did hundreds and maybe thousands of concerts together. But to me, Jim was not just a contractor hiring great players, which he certainly did. More, Jim was a colleague, someone I looked to for advice as I tried to change the game of what a group like Live Arts could be, and he was a wonderful oboe player, but mostly, he was a friend. I always look forward to seeing him at a rehearsal or concert, and he always had a funny remark to make. Recently, we did some concerts after Jim had passed, and I can tell you they weren't the same. His humor and energy always made them special. Husband, father, musician, and friend. These are all remarkable gifts for anyone. But for me, the best gift is the way that he brought us all together, connected us, and helped us to create friendships that have lasted more than 40 years. I will miss many things about you, my friend, but the thing I will miss the most is looking over before starting a concert and seeing you ready to play.
Thank you, Ernie, if you're watching. Thank you, Mercy. And now a selection from the bass strings. thank you so much to the bass strings, and I was listening to their musical tribute and thinking, just the artistry that's in this room, all of these people who've come here, and I thought about the sacrifice that it takes to be an artist, to be a musician, the amount of soul you pour into what you do, and the time that everyone else is relaxing, you're working, and we have a few musicians who will need to leave early because they have this calling for the artistry. And before they go and before I have a chance to speak to everyone, I wanted to thank them and to just lift up that artistry that they've given so generously to us today. So now we'll hear some tributes from family, and we'll start with my father's oldest sister, Deborah Long.
It's a thrill, but not really a surprise to see such a full house today, because we are here to pay tribute to a truly, I think, unique individual. And so, I am very, very, very proud to have been his sister, and I'd just like to tell you a little bit about my experience with him. It's not nearly as detailed as many of yours, but nonetheless, I think, it's a different kind of take on him, because family is something really different. So 6 days before my 10th birthday, I found myself with a gift that would enrich my life for the next 66 years. Our grandmother had taken my little sister Martha and me to the hospital to meet our baby brother. And this scene has played out over and over and over in my mind for the past several months. As we stood outside the door, watching as our mother and her new charge were wheeled out to us, and our life together began. He was named, of course, after our father, James Thomas Dickey, Jr., and I suppose in the best, in the sequence of things, he would have been called Jim, just like our dad. But we had another plan. We thought that it would be nice to call him Jamie, because it would distinguish him from my father, as well as paying some sort of tribute to Brandon DeWilde, who was acting in a really nice sitcom that we really enjoyed, and we thought he was really handsome. So there was a double whammy on that one. Since I was the big sister, I was old enough to be helpful in taking care of him as he grew, and I believe that some aspects of that closeness persisted through all these many years. Nothing bonds quite so completely as a diaper. Okay, I'm speaking to you today, despite the levity, I'm speaking to you today through grief. But what I want to convey is the great joy that the many gifts of his life have given not only me, but everyone in our family and to all of you. There are few people whose company I have enjoyed more completely throughout all these years. Nobody could tell a joke with more relish. He could spin a yarn so cleverly that no matter how often it was rewound, the punchline was always a surprise. He relished his food, and he seemed to remember every meal he ate and where and when he ate it. Do you remember that restaurant in Calistoga where you and Ian and I had that great apple pie? And so I carry with me the great gifts of a nest of happy memories to rest on, of time spent with Jim, both here and in California. He actually came out to see us when he did his band programming. So that was great because I got him all to myself without the rest of the band for a whole day. I was able to play a small part in the young lives of my nieces and nephews, and those warm relationships continue as they have become amazing adults, each one gifted in his or her own way, each one distinctly wonderful. I believe that Jim's presents an example of a life truly well lived. He worked hard and took pleasure and inspiration from his profession. He was dedicated to and conscientious about doing the best possible work in whatever he undertook. He was intensely interested in other people, and we see that evidence here. He might not have been the most overtly social person all the time, but he developed very deep and strong emotional bonds with just about everybody he came in contact with. He had an astounding energy for other people. His life was a full one. His work, his children, and his home would have been all-consuming for most people, but he had time and energy for more. He was the only one of our family to retain enduring contacts with and interest in those uncles and aunts and cousins who were separated from us by generation and geography. He was dedicated to seeing that our parents were well taken care of, even though that task was, more often than not, a thankless one. Jim always seemed younger than his years. I remember very specifically his wedding with Diana. Looking across the dining room at their rehearsal dinner, I was struck by how young he looked, despite the mustache he had so painstakingly cultivated. And over the years, I was struck and a little envious of the way their relationship grew. They were mutual partners in strength. Years ago, John Ciardi wrote a poem that compared a marriage to an arch. It cannot hold unless each half of the span is strong. Jim and Diana formed that arch. It gave support and sustenance to their children, their families, their friends, and their professions. I'm sure that my brother truly enjoyed his life, not only the big moments, but also the small ones, like lying in a hammock, reading under the trees in the summertime, or like a really good slice of apple pie. He has left deep and lasting memories and stands as an example of what it means to give to others and to live well. I'm grateful to him for all that, and I say this from a place of profound sadness. But that sadness also has made me acutely aware of the intense beauty of the world and of most of the people in it. And for that, I am also very grateful. Thank you, Jim.
I'm the middle sister. And so Jamie and I were the closest in age of the siblings. And he and I had this kind of special bond and laughing hilariously all the time. And we would go to laugh in the most inappropriate places like church. And it was irresistible. I mean, you just sat down and you knew that it wasn't going to be long before we fell apart laughing. Mom was always trying to shush us, but it never worked. So we had a really, really special childhood, I think. And I remember driving with that first caravan of station wagons when the freeways were completed, and our dad took us out west, and we got to see the Tetons, and it was just such a thrill. But he was little. I mean, he was maybe, I don't even know if he was 2 years old. And he was sick the whole time in the car. So I remember vividly his throwing up out the side of the car. And I'll bet nobody else here experienced that. So I guess that's unique to me. And as I I didn't prepare anything to say. I just wanted to have some observations. First of all, I don't really feel like he's gone. And I thought that was kind of denial for a while, but now I realize that it was just that energy does not go away. It doesn't die. It doesn't fade. And so I find myself smiling now sometimes when I think of him, instead of just breaking down and crying. Anyway, one of the things that I did that really, pissed him off was calling him Jimbo. He hated it. And I, of course, as soon as I figure out that he hated it, could not stop doing it. And I went to see him the last time I saw him, and he was very sick, but he was awake and conscious and talking. And as I was getting ready to leave, I swear to God, the last words I ever heard him speak directly to me was, "Don't call me Jimbo." And I'm just so glad that he did that, because he had this little same old corner of the mouth turned up. And anyway, so I do miss him. I just, in a way, I'm still kind of unbelieving that he's gone, because he's younger than I am. So I never dreamed that he'd be going before me. And I just picture him as a young kid. He probably looked very much the same as an adult. He always was busy. I mean, he was always going somewhere. He was just running somewhere. That kind of walked with that kind of forward tilt, like he was always going into the wind, and might get blown down, and he was going to get there no matter what. So he was just like this frenzy of energy and nerves, and that was just him from the time he was a little boy until the last time I saw him. He was a wonderful musician, and I'm so glad that they're playing the last piece after I speak, because I don't think I'd be able to hold it together after hearing that piece. So I've always lately I've just kind of been thinking back, and I realized that he was so good to people. He was so kind. He took care of people. He and his wonderful wife, Diana, rescued me one time from yet another wrong path I'd taken. And I will be forever grateful for that, because it really meant a lot. And he was just a good guy, and he had no ego about it. I mean, I remember he would come home, and he was the guy who would come home and visit his old band leader, from high school. He'd go spend time with them, go up to the school, say hi to people. It's like, I would never have gone back into my high school after I left it. I was so glad to be gone. But that was him, and just taking care of mom and dad and their friends, and it was just, he was always engaged in other people's lives, and he never expected anything in return. And I just kind of recently realized that. And I realized also, I guess he can't until the very last, that he loved me, and I really loved him.
Hey, everybody. My name's Thomas. I'm Jim Dickey's son. I'm James Thomas Dickey IV. So go figure. I have prepared nothing. I'm actually not going to share any of my own words. I'm going to share John Troxell's words. I just got this about 35 seconds ago, so I've done very little prep. Bear with me. Again, words of John Troxell. When Jim asked me to speak at his U.S. Marine Band retirement, I immediately agreed. Then, with direct eye contact for emphasis, his head slightly tilted and an index finger extended, he said, "One rule, John, no weeping." Got it. Thank you to Jim for speaking at my retirement, says John. In the good book in Ecclesiastes, it says, "For everything there is a season and a time for, a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die." And further, a time to weep and a time to laugh. Here we are. And we will weep and laugh, because in remembering Jim, He could really make you laugh, and we will weep because we do miss him. Jim and I were born in the same year and overlapped in the Marine Band for 20 years. He also shared many years of concert seasons in Annapolis. Thanks for all the calls, Jim. In that horn section, I also got better acquainted with Diana. My older daughter attended the Eleanor Roosevelt High School music program, as did Jim and Diana's children. At least those two, not me. We have common school friends from that time. Jim was very loyal in friendship. His excellent organizational skills were on display after the passing of Rick Lehman. Jim was the point man in helping Rick's family plan the fitting memorial service held at the Landon School. Jim was ready with the sharpest wit I've ever known. He could read the room and didn't just know what to say, but how to say it, and most importantly, when. He was introduced to speak at one of his first events after retirement at the Annex Sousa Band Hall. The first thing he did was turn around to the English horn and oboes and say for all to hear, "You know all your hard work making reeds? Don't even talk about it. Nobody else cares." He did offer very sound advice about thriving in the Marine Band. We roomed on music convention trips as well as on tour, sharing a lot of stories about children and family. And John had to include, what's spoken in confidence on tour follows the Las Vegas rule. He does not elaborate, so. One weekday for a pre-tour concert dinner, he enthusiastically recommended Piccadilly Cafeteria. "John, they have a dinner special, main dish, salad, bread, drink, and dessert, one price." "Okay, let's go." Once there, I covered a tray, a plate of spaghetti, green salad, Italian bread, iced tea, chocolate pie. I got done unloading everything onto the table and moved the tray away. Jim looks at me and says, "Oink." While rehearsing Phantom of the Opera for a U.S. Capitol summer concert, Colonel Bourgeois asked Jim if he would be willing to scream the scream of Christine. "Sure," he says. At the Capitol that night, on cue, Jim lets out the loudest, blood-curdling scream. Even though I knew it was coming, I was startled as everyone else on the steps was right in front of him. I told him it really frightened me, and Jim quipped, "I scared myself." Jim could really make you laugh, and we will weep because we do miss him. Diana, Gwyneth, Rachel, Thomas, David, thanks for sharing Jim with us.
I wish my dad were here to give one of his speeches. They somehow genuinely made you chuckle, tear up at least once, and, in the words of John Troxell, speak to the moment with humor, empathy, compliments, poignancy, and charm. But I'll give it a go. You all know my dad loved a good joke. He used to tell his favorites over and over and over again, sometimes just the punchline to get us all going. One of his favorites goes like this. There was this little old couple sitting in their rickety rocking chairs on the front porch. The little old man turns to his wife and says, "I'm proud of you." "Huh?" she asks. "I'm proud of you." "Huh?" she asks. "I'm proud of you for raising the kids and stuff." "Huh?" "I'm proud of you," he finally shouts. "Well, I'm tired of you too." Got him every time. We all like to hear people say they're proud of us, especially our parents. My dad was really proud of his family. He told us that a lot. He was proud of my mom, Diana. He always bragged about her when she was out of earshot. He was proud of Rachel, who was always the caring and generous one. He was proud of Thomas, his boy, who took such good care of him when he got sick. He was proud of David, his little mini-me, who followed in his oboe-playing footsteps. He came to all our concerts and applauded with all the other parents, no matter how bad it sounded. He came to our sports games, though there weren't that many, and cheered us on, or shoved us onto the playing field, depending on what the occasion required. He took us to his own concerts and receptions and introduced us to his friends and colleagues. But when I think back, I'm trying to remember if I told my dad I was proud of him. As a kid, I loved going with him to concerts. And Martha just talked about the forward way he walked, like he was going into the wind. He's wearing this crisp white uniform, carrying his oboe, walking with purpose. I'd whisper to anyone who'd listen that that was my dad. Every time he gave one of his funny speeches, I was so proud of him. When he rushed around Maryland Hall before a concert, I was proud of him. Took charge in such a friendly, affable way. When he narrated the night before Christmas with the orchestra, that was so exciting. I was proud of him when he headed up the HOA in his neighborhood. I was proud of him for soldiering on when he got so sick, for not complaining, and expressing so much gratitude through it all. Now I know I said thank you. I thanked him for rocking crying babies all night long. I was the worst, and he always liked to remind me of that I was a screaming red raisin for 6 months. Sorry, Dad. He held our sick heads when we threw up, and he watched black and white movies with us until we felt better. He made big meals that could feed 6 with leftovers. He taught all us kids what it meant to have integrity, to do the right thing, to love music, to watch thunderstorms, to apologize, to be polite to adults, and taught us the appropriate and inappropriate times to swear. Thanks, Dad. To laugh often and not take ourselves too seriously. To stand up for ourselves, ask nicely for things, even when we're mad, and be the bigger person. But did I tell him I'm proud of him? I'm not sure. Probably not enough. But I was. So if you're listening, Dad, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you, Gwyneth. I don't remember if I ever introduced myself to you all. I'm Rachel. I'm number 2. I did prepare things to say, but just to ad lib, I've been thinking the last couple of days, about ghosts. And I was like, why aren't there ever any, fun, nice ghosts? Why is it always, a scary ghost story? And then, I'm not sure, but Dad might have knocked down that picture a second ago. So thanks for being here, Dad, just in case. I'd say we miss you, but maybe you're here with us. But I just wanted to say hello. Thank you for being here. I'm going to repeat some things. I want to start out with acknowledging this beautiful space that Ernie Green and the Live Arts allowed us to use. It will be a performance space with a lot of wonderful music and just something that will keep my father's life's work alive. It's beautiful, and we're so appreciative, especially of Draper Carter. I know he's been spending a lot of time helping us get this together, and Anna Mays. Thank you for sharing your time so graciously. And there's too many people to thank. So just thank you to all of you who have helped and supported us in this very sad moment of our lives. I know we're here for a celebration of life, but we're all very sad. So you may know, many of you may know, that my parents raised us as musicians in our early life, yet we are conspicuously absent from giving any performances today other than speaking. We're shattered at losing him. His departure from us was swift and unpredictable from the time that we had a chance to see it coming to the end. It feels out of reach to imagine honoring my father's life's work with my own performance. I can speak for my family. And I'm deeply grateful to those who have stepped up to the plate today to do just that. On behalf of my entire family, thank you. My father will thank you later with the soundtrack behind a beautiful slideshow my sister put together for stepping up to the plate by his rendition of Casey at the Bat. We'll talk more about that later. My dad is gone, and I remember him. In my experience, my mom and dad were a unit. Together, they were our protectors. If anything went wrong, a car accident, botched plans before an important milestone like prom or international travel, I would always pick up the phone sobbing, and my dad and mom would spring to action. They would get at the heart of the issue and fix whatever problem they could. I was always safe with them and better when they were by my side. They were proud members of the armed forces, and they shaped my work ethic and my value system. They served our country faithfully with their talents. Mom and dad came from a long line of musicians and followed the sacred charge of those before them to keep the art form alive and to do it justice. Have you ever heard the special squeak of an oboe reed being made? My childhood was peppered with those squeaks. Thank you, Carrie Willingham, for reminding me of that today. If I had a nickel for every squeak, I could buy a Bentley. I remember the sound of the landline ringing and our trained response, "Who may I ask is speaking?" taking messages from many of you here about whether they were available for the next performance or the next gig or the next rehearsal. The smell of freshly cut grass as we sat on lawns of the nation's capital on summer nights, listening to mom and dad's concerts, catching fireflies, breathing life into this art form has been their life's work, and it was a privilege to witness that. My dad was a teacher. From the early days of private lessons in our home to his beloved Shenandoah University students, he faithfully passed along the proud tradition of music. I watched Dad pour his heart and soul into that work with genuine concern for the future of the art form and the people to whom he would pass the torch. My dad, as you've heard, was a storyteller. He would spin yarns about funny stories, even sad and scary ones. I would hang on to his every word, whether he was smoking a cigar on the deck or musing during a car ride. I loved to hear that man talk. My dad was lucky. He was a lucky son of a gun because he got to marry my mom. She will always tell you that she was lucky too. Once I asked them separately what they loved about the other. Mom told me she fell in love with his eyes. Dad had to really dwell on it. He didn't want to give an off-the-cuff answer. He came back to me a couple days later, and he told me that he really admired my mom because she always told the truth. She always really cared. They both found true love and raised me to be able to find the same. My dad is gone, but sometimes I feel like he's still here. I see him when I see my brother Thomas, a natural leader and protector. Long ago, he gracefully stepped into that role. He's faithful and loving, and Thomas, you're so brave and courageous. I see him when I hear and I see my brother as he traverses the globe playing his oboe, keeping Dad's life's work alive. David, thank you for your sacrifice and your artistry. I see him when Gwyneth shapes our youth as a teacher with compassion and deep care for passing on knowledge of things she holds dear. Thank you for being a teacher. I see him when I look at my mom, forever shaped by the beautiful life they built together, the echoes of their laughter, their smiles, the twinkle in his eye reflected in hers, when they would remind each other to get down on your knees and thank your lucky stars that I married you. They would both say it. Mom, thank you for being you. You're an incredible person. I see him in all of your stories, smiles, tears, and this community that he's brought together. And when I see that, I piece together those shattered pieces, like the glass of the frame Dad knocked down for us. I piece them back together. I feel my dad with me, because you all are here, and maybe he is too. And I thank you for that. My dad used to say that if he ever won the lottery, he would have a lot of fun just giving it away. I want to be like that too. I want to give and leave the world a better place than I found it. I want to tell a funny story and brighten someone's day. Maybe drop off a casserole for dinner. Maybe buy a special set of Spanish Cokes for my step-grandson just to let him know that I think about him and I love him. Maybe you all can join me in what a legacy that would be. You did a good job, Dad. You worked hard and you made an impact. We love you and we miss you. Thank you.
I'm David. I'm number 4. I was going to say my dad knocked over the paintings when Martha called him Jimbo. He said he hated that. It was right when you said that. Thank you all for coming. Now that my dad has passed, I think of him all the time. I think of him constantly. Every time I think of him, I'm filled with love and I'm filled with comfort. I'm still surprised when I get to hear his voice on the answering machine when I call my childhood home trying to reach my mom. It makes me happy when I get to hear his voice. Every time I'm with other people and I think of my dad, I tell them what I was just thinking of him. I don't shy away from the possibility of an awkward feeling they might have knowing he's just recently died. Every time I talk about him, I'm filled with love and I'm filled with comfort. Just a few weeks ago, my mom and my brother and sisters and I were on a conference call trying to plan this service. And at one point, the details and the options and the decision-making kind of just got to all of us. And I could tell we were all getting frustrated and emotional and short-tempered. And I remember thinking, we really need Dad right now. Dad would see us all getting upset and tell everyone to just take a deep breath. And he would be able to lay down the law and just make a decision that was best for everyone, and we would all be fine with it. But he wasn't there to do that, and we had to figure it out ourselves. It reminded me of every day my dad was really sick. The past 8 months felt for me like it was the first time my family lost all sense of control. My dad's health just suddenly derailed, and all 5 of us exhausted every last one of our efforts and every last drop of our many superpowers just to gain some sort of control over the situation and change what was happening to my dad and to all of us. My dad was always there for us when we had a problem we couldn't solve. There was always someone he could call, some strings he could pull, or when all else failed, he could turn on his unique charm and get us out of whatever bad situation we were in. With him gone, we don't have that lifeline anymore. And that's been a really huge shock. It was a Herculean feat that we all got through this year, and we did not come out unscathed. But we did it together, and we all relied on the support we gave each other and all the tools my dad gave us while he raised us. Recently, in a podcast called The Moth, I heard someone say that every time you talk about a person who has died, you bring them back to life for a few moments. And that's all I can think to do now. All I can do is remember him and pass on the things he taught me to as many people as I can. Of course, my dad taught me to play the oboe. And I hope I carry his legacy on with me every day that I practice and make reads and rehearse and perform. I certainly think of him every time that I do. My dad taught me how powerful a tool your sense of humor can be and how cathartic it is to find something funny in even the worst situation. My dad taught me always to check my fly right before I walk out on stage. And to always hang up my tux right after I get home from a gig. My dad showed me that even the smallest act of kindness or doing the simplest thing for another person can have a huge impact on their day, and maybe even on the world at large. My parents both showed me how important your family is and how vital your relationship to your spouse is. My dad showed me how important it is to say, I love you to the people you love, and I'm proud of you to the people who need to hear it. I made sure that was the last thing I said to my dad. I love you, Dad, and I'm proud of you.
I'm Diana, and I know most everyone here today. I think I probably know everyone here today. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, I'll try to stand over here so that I'm close to the mic. I had a really hard time writing what I want to say today, and a lot of what I've written has already been said by my children, but I'll repeat it. It's worth repeating. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I'm so grateful to everyone for coming today, and your love and support that you've demonstrated to us today it's overwhelming, but it's so appreciated during this time, which has been very difficult for us. Anyway, I'll go on with my remarks. I met Jim when he hired me to play an opera way back in 1979. He was the orchestra contractor, and I had recently returned to the area after surviving 8 weeks of boot camp and the first few months of my new job as a musician in the Navy Academy Band. I showed up to rehearsal in my Navy uniform, almost late because of an overly long Navy parade. I was ready to play. Jim introduced himself, probably wondering why anyone would show up to a civilian gig in uniform, and I was immediately captivated by his eyes. They were friendly and kind, with cute little laugh lines in the corners. A few days later, Jim called to ask me out, and we made a date. At the last minute, I had to go to a short afternoon rehearsal. I invited Jim to wait at my house until I got back. He agreed, and when he arrived, I told him to make himself at home, and I left for my rehearsal. Taking me at my word, Jim looked through the refrigerator for a snack to hold him until dinner. All he could find to eat in the whole house was warm Fresca and stale potato chips. Jim sat down in the easy chair in the living room and tried to make himself comfortable anyway. As soon as he sat down, Hastings, my rescue cat, jumped up into his lap and started to make herself comfortable. Now, Jim did not like cats. Jim was allergic to cats. But as he was about to brush her off his lap, he noticed Mona, my rescue German shepherd, closely observing his every movement. The date was not starting well. My rehearsal went long, and our date finally started 2 hours late. But from my perspective, we had a wonderful time. Jim was a scintillating conversationalist, witty, funny, self-confident, and the evening was a success. I found out later that Jim's experience was quite different. Apparently, the Fresca, stale chips, irritating cat, menacing dog, and my tardiness did not make a good impression. If it weren't for Jeff Tomachek, we probably would never have gone on a second date. On our second date, I couldn't actually go on the date because I was playing the concert that Jim wanted me to go to. So I suggested we meet after the concert. Jim brought Celeste with him to the concert, and the three of us went out to the Owl Bar afterward and had a great time. Things progressed more steadily after that, and 2 years later, we were married in the Naval Academy Chapel. I owe Jeff and Celeste a huge debt of gratitude for the parts they played in our courtship. Jim made a favorable impression on my family as well. At the wedding reception, all of my relatives remarked on how lucky Diana was to be marrying such a fine young man. Jim was a happy person. Every morning he woke up laughing. He said he dreamed of jokes before he woke up. That initial happiness contributed to his overall optimistic outlook. His good humor was able to ease tense situations and help us all not to take ourselves so seriously. Jim appreciated simple things, like a good sneeze, reading a book in the hammock, reading a book while floating in a noodle in the lake, taking family vacations to Ohio or Vermont. He made everyday things seem special. Jim was witty, always cracking jokes. He was the fun parent. He was the family storyteller and creator of the family traditions we all looked forward to. He was a good cook. In fact, his mother asked me once, "How does it feel to be married to a gourmet chef?" Jim made nightly dinners. He easily fixed special birthday dinners for the whole clan. He was a loving and supportive husband, a nurturing father, a thoughtful son, brother, uncle, and loyal friend. Jim was fearless. He played solos, he conducted, he contracted entire orchestras, narrated features like The Night Before Christmas and Casey at the Bat, and he did them from memory in live concerts. That would be terrifying to someone like me. He was an enthusiastic member of the Carabao Chorus and an eloquent speaker for friends' retirements, their funerals, and other occasions. Jim had a steel-trap memory. He could remember every tour he went on, where he went, what he played, the meals he ate, etc. Since we both toured with our respective bands at different times during the year, I could call him, tell him which town we were in, and he could tell me how to get to a good restaurant for dinner. And he was always right. He would tell me what to order. This was before cell phones put all that information at our fingertips. Jim was athletic in his own way. He played competitive badminton in the backyard with the family. He canoed and kayaked. He was the best stern man I ever canoed with. And he loved running in the neighborhoods at home and on tour. When he was at home, he would always use that running occasion to stop and chat with the neighbors. Jim was disciplined. Throughout the entire pandemic, he practiced and made reads every day, even though there were no rehearsals or concerts. He'd walk out into the neighborhood paths and test his reeds and play his oboe excerpts for all the neighbors to hear. One of our neighbors, Steve Theodore, also a musician, when hearing Jim attempt a particularly tricky excerpt, called out, "That should be an F sharp," from his deck. It was all in good fun. Life with Jim was fun and fulfilling. He gave us good advice. He was encouraging. He made us feel safe and accepted. He was an admirable role model for all of us. It turns out my relatives were right. I was lucky to have met and married that young man in 1979. And I was so lucky to have been able to spend over 40 years with him, with the man who would become my best friend. Thank you.
As we get ready for our final live music selection, I just want to say that I think I can speak for all of us who have, perhaps all of us who've spoken, that this was simultaneously the most difficult and the easiest thing we've ever done. So thank you for all the tributes, and we'll have a few moments at the end of our program to hear from anyone else that would like to share before we have refreshments. But before that, we have a few more tributes to share with you. So Carrie and Donna Willingham will share a beautiful musical tribute.
So the last thing we have is a slideshow. And you'll hear some narration in the background. That's my dad. A lot of you know and from the band that he narrated Casey at the Bat one time. So I guess it was 2001, and the regular person who would have narrated that at the Marine Band concert was not there, and so he narrated Casey at the Bat. And we don't have that recording, and we didn't know where to find it, and we couldn't find it in the archives, so I emailed some friends of Dad's, and Doug Burian, thank you, and friends for finding this recording, because it really meant a lot to be able to have it in the background. You'll see some vintage photos from when my dad was little. My grandfather took those. He was a fantastic photographer. So anyway, here it is.
It looked extremely rocky for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2 with but one inning left to play. So when Cooney died at second and Burroughs did the same, a pall-like silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go, leaving there the rest with the hope that springs eternal from within the human breast. They thought if only Casey could get a whack at that, why, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, and likewise so did Blake. And the former was a pudding, and the latter was a fake. Upon that stricken multitude, a death-like silence sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey's getting to the bat. But Flynn let go a single to the wonderment of all, and the much despised Blakey, why, he tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had settled and they saw what had occurred, whoa, Nelly! There was Blakey safe at second, and Flynn a hugging third! Then from the glad multitude went up a joyous yell. It bounded off the mountaintops and rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside, rebounded in the flat, for Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was an ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat. No stranger in that crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were upon him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded as he wiped them on his shirt. And when the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance glared from Casey's eyes, and a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now now, the leather sphere came hurtling through the air, and Casey stood and watched it in haughty grandeur there. Close by, the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the benches black with people, there went up a muffled roar like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. Tell the umpire," someone shouted from the stands, "and it's likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised his hand." With a smile of noble charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult, and he bid the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the spheroid flew, but Casey still ignored it. The umpire said, "Strike two." "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousands, and the echo answered, "Fraud!" But one scornful look from Casey and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain. And they knew that Casey would not let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's face. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel vengeance, his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. Somewhere, the band is playing. Somewhere, hearts are light. Somewhere, men are laughing. And somewhere, children shout. But there's no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out.
Thanks for coming today, everybody. I forgot to tell you how hard that slideshow was to make because Dad was unable to smile on command. You'd say, "Smile," and he'd go. So there are a lot of pictures of him going like that. So it was, anyway, thank you so much for coming today. Really, it means so much to us. We have food in the back. Please help yourself to some refreshments. And yeah, we hope to see all of you. Thank you.